Good morning, Planet Earth. I'm Mango Thunderslice, and you're tuned into the weekly Anarchist news for September 18th, 2016. Starting off this week with a very notable development that everyone's been talking about, the collapse of Clinton. Hillary Clinton has, her campaign has seemingly the wheels have come off. She collapsed at a 9/11 ceremony in New York City. Very bad place to look weak at a 9/11 memorial. She gets lifted into a van. The video, if you haven't seen it yet, it looks like she's having some kind of seizure, loses control of her body. The Secret Service agents are basically lifting her into the car. Her shoe falls off and gets left behind. Pretty bad optics, especially at this stage in the game, only like, what, 60 days before the election? You know, they said it was overheating, even though it was 79 degrees in New York City that day. Now they say it was pneumonia, but in any case, neither of those conditions caused seizures, which is what it kind of looks like she's been having. You know, Hillary's in bad shape, and, you know, the polls are basically, they're running now. Trump is surging, especially in the swing states. So, yeah, it's really looking bad for the Hillary campaign, and it's looking ever more likely that there's going to be a President Trump. How many of you predicted that one a year ago? Now the Washington Post, owned by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, who is a supporter of Hillary Clinton. Now that periodical is giving credence to a conspiracy theory of their own that Vladimir Putin of Russia, has poisoned Hillary Clinton. My goodness. It's only a conspiracy theory when it's about Hillary Clinton, right? As soon as she starts saying conspiracy theories, then it's like, oh yeah, this is totally legit. Congressman Jason Chaffetz of Utah pretty much owned an FBI agent during congressional testimony about the whole email thing and why the FBI didn't turn over, you know, all the emails and all the interviews. Basically, they kind of just gave Congress some of it. And Jason Chaffetz is a great YouTube video. Check it out. He just completely destroys this poor guy in the FBI. He even serves him with a subpoena right there during the testimony. Pretty awesome. Yeah, on the spot, basically serves him, basically telling the FBI that they have to turn over everything, that they can't pick and choose. So that's interesting. You know, with corruption like the Clintons, the email scandals just keep on coming. And Julian Assange has even promised, of WikiLeaks, has promised an October surprise of even more emails to be released that are supposedly even more devastating. And as a poetic illustration of the pathetic Clinton campaign, the small donors, just like the mom and pop, you know, the supporters of Hillary Clinton who have donated to her, are being repeatedly overcharged. The Clinton campaign is basically scamming these poor people and like repeatedly charging their cards that they donated with. And it's obviously a scam because they always do it when it's less than $100, which doesn't usually trigger the bank's fraud alert. So they're basically just scamming these poor, you know, donors out of their money, and it's pretty sad. You know, even the former president of Haiti, the Haitian former president, came out at a Trump rally and basically told Trump and told the world that Hillary tried to bribe him, that in 2010, after the Haitian earthquake, which devastated that country, that basically Hillary and Bill Clinton basically pocketed the $13 billion they were given to rebuild that country. They built a couple houses, but they were supposed to rebuild the whole island. And so they basically just scammed the entire nation of Haiti. And now the former Haitian president is coming out and saying, yeah, she tried to bribe me. Oh, good times. You know, we live in an empire. We don't live in a republic. We sure don't live in a democracy. It's an empire. And, you know, basically there's a lot of things coming out now that just make that abundantly clear. And this is the next section of the weekly Anarchist news, is the Naked Empire. There's been an escalation in Syria. U.S. fighter jets attacked and bombed Syrian government forces while they were fighting ISIS. So basically U.S. jets basically came in and saved the day for ISIS and, you know, saved their asses. Russia has publicly accused the United States of helping ISIS, and only days after the latest ceasefire was negotiated over pizza and vodka between John Kerry and Sergei Lavrov of Russia. Yeah, pretty bad. America pretends its military interventions are humanitarian, but they are in fact always about strategic conquest of resources. A new leaked Colin Powell email shows that regarding Iran's nuclear program, which the neocons are always freaking out about, oh, Iran's going to get a nuclear weapon, Iran's going to get a nuclear weapon. Well, one of Colin Powell's emails came out, and basically he was talking to a billionaire kind of, business associate of his, and basically made the very illuminating comment that, so what if Iran gets a nuclear weapon? Because Israel has 200 nuclear weapons pointed directly at Iran 24/7. You know, many have speculated this. This is one of the things that also John F. Kennedy was trying to accomplish before he got capped, is that he did not want Israel to be a nuclear power because he foresaw that they would use that to bully the entire Middle East into creating, a world of their own image. And that's exactly what's been happening. The United States has been at war in the Middle East to produce the greater Israel and transform the Middle East. The U.S. also supports radical Islamic regimes like Saudi Arabia and Turkey. They're all kind of just satellite states, governors within the larger imperial structure, just like ancient Rome. You'd have principalities and powers and minor governments that usually would be at war with one another, but they're all being subjugated by the greater power, which in this case has been the United States and its surrogate partner, Israel. And since 9/11, $5 trillion has been spent on the war of terror since 9/11, and also concurrently with that has been a 6,500% increase in acts of terrorism worldwide. So this is pretty much how the empire rolls. They create their own enemies, they create their own problems, and that gives them a reason to enact ever more draconian rules, start ever more wars, and control more people's decisions. Now even the European bureaucrats are preparing to create an army of the European Union, a continental European army, to confront Russia and also to combat the self-generated Islamic threat with all the, crazy radicals and terrorists coming up through the refugee population. The empire, that's the name of the game. Every single time they create the problem, people freak out, and then they offer them a pre-made solution that they already had waiting in the wings. At home, citizens of the United States are jailed for using plants created by God to feel good. And a new study shows that the economic loss, the total cost, not just like how much it costs to house the prisoners, but the high incarceration rate, how many people are in jail in the United States, which as many people know is the highest in the world, and it leads to a $1.2 trillion economic loss. So we're blowing up people all over the world, we've made plants illegal, and it's costing us $1 trillion at home. It's just one giant nightmare, and they want to say the anarchists, the people who speculate that we can exist happily and harmoniously without this central government, are the crazy crackpots. But you look at the numbers, you look at the world, and the opposite is true. That the craziness and the evil in the world is because people put faith in government to solve their problems. And when people are willing to solve their problems themselves and trade and negotiate and speak and basically not defer their authority to this higher power, which just goes on murderous rampages, that we can achieve peace in our world, we can have harmony, but not as long as we're being divided by this imperial structure. Luckily, that leads us to our third section, which is the cracks in the empire. That this structure is desperate right now, and its controllers are increasingly showing their desperation. So one of these examples is after insulting the United Nations, the U.S. ambassador, calling them sons of whores, and he insulted Obama just a week or so ago. Now the Philippines leader, Rodrigo Duterte, says that they will buy weapons from Russia and China in addition to the United States. So, instead of before where they just bought weapons from the United States, now they're buying them from Russia and China, which is very strategic change. Using Philippines as a pawn against China was kind of the United States strategy in confronting them and, getting them pinned in this World War III scenario, and now it's backfiring, They wanted the Philippines to play the little role, of the imperial pawn, and now Rodrigo Duterte and calls them all sons of whores and tells them all to, go fuck off. It's pretty great. And back home inside the United States, taxpayers are fleeing New York, Illinois, and California. You know, just because of the imperial tax burden, the high taxes and the regulatory nonsense, and just, you know, you need a permit to sneeze in New York City, and just like, you know, all these crazy, like Chicago with the strictest gun control in the nation has more deaths than Iraq and Afghanistan combined. You know, it's just, and people are getting out. They're voting with their feet, which is up there with voting with your dollar in a way to truly affect change, and not to just spin your wheels waiting for 4 years to come around before you send a vote for some politician. Vote with your feet, vote with your dollar. That's the way to go. Space Panther and I are, you know, still in our preparation phase. We will be leaving the United States. We will be building our lives in a country outside of the empire. And there are many good options, but, you know, we'll leave that for another video. Record numbers of Americans are leaving the United States right now and renouncing their citizenship. You know, it's just the numbers going parabolic, because the United States actually charges income tax, not just if you're in the United States, but by citizenship. An American citizen anywhere in the world, no matter where, they could be in freaking Antarctica, but if they make $1 somewhere, they owe the United States government taxes. It's a completely insane system that's shared by no other country in the world except for like one other, I can't even, maybe it's like Sri Lanka or something, but yeah, it's, you know, it's just part of this imperial structure that they believe that they own you, and no matter where you are, they think that they can claim your production, which is, you know, what we're trying to free ourselves from. And the whole thesis of anarchy is that we don't need them to steal from us in order to live happy and peaceable lives. We can keep our money and spend it on the things that are important to us, both individually and collectively. Canada, yeah, despite the DEA's move against kratom recently, which we covered in the drugs video, we are winning the drug war. The people are winning. Canada just legalized medical heroin, okay? They've legalized medical heroin prescriptions for diehard addicts who have already tried to get off of it, and they don't react well to some of the drugs they give them, like methadone. You know, this is part of the harm reduction approach, losing the delusional fantasy that we can just tell people not to do something and they're just not going to do it. But actually, you know, realizing that people will make the choices they will, and that the best we can do is just reduce the harm associated with those activities. It's worked absolute wonders in Portugal, where they have decriminalized all drugs, and now Canada is taking a step in that direction, which I think is a great thing. And on the scientific revolution, you know, the revolution against the imperial propaganda is also moving up. The scientists are forced to find excuses for the major global snowstorms taking place. So, you know, the Earth is cooling right now, temperatures in the ocean are down, temperatures in the air are down, ice is growing in the Antarctic, ice is, you know, well above the record lows set in 2012. You know, and we're seeing all these snowstorms, and it's wiping out all these crops across, you know, Northern Europe and Russia. And now the scientists have to come out with excuses like, oh yeah, global warming can cause more snowstorms, you see? They say that it causes more evaporation, and that leads to more snow. But then again, if the general temperature was increasing, that water vapor shouldn't turn into snow. So, you know, they're just getting more and more desperate. And people can see through it. You know, people see through the nonsense. And now the empire's backers are getting desperate. And that's a good sign for us, because it means that all of our efforts, our conversations that we've been having with people and waking them up, is having its effect. Our seed is growing fruit, and that's a wonderful thing. And our awesome story of the day is a tortoise named Diego has saved his species from extinction by having so much sex that he has restored the tortoise population. A sheer force of virility that should inspire us all. And with that, I leave you. Have a wonderful week. Wholeness and balanced vibrations. If you like what you heard, comment, like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Cheers.